Well, it's lovely to be here, and thank you so much for asking me. I'm not very familiar with Lowestoft, but I drove through it on a lovely, as the sun came out, and I saw the sparkling sea, so perhaps I'll come back. I'm going to read to you, because I think it would just be nice to kick off with a story. I will sum myself up very, very fast. I spent 30 years trying to get published. I started when I was in my early 20s, so you can work out how old I am now. And I wrote right the way through my working life, through the bringing up of my child, through 4 house moves and my eventual arrival from Surrey to Suffolk. And finally, about 2.5 years ago, I finally broke through. And it's happened incredibly fast since then. It is like, waiting on the station for a train for heaven knows how long, and suddenly 3 come along at once. It really was like that. So in 2013, I had The Dress Thief published by Quercus. And then this year, almost a year later, just over a year later, I had The Milliner's Secret published, also by Quercus. And I'm now waiting for Quercus to come up with a contract for the next one. I spent maybe 10 years working on The Dress Thief, from its very, very early manifestation as that first great doorstep of a manuscript that every writer has to do, right the way through several rewrites to the last rewrites to get it to this stage. And then I had 8 months to write this one. So it was a bit like a kind of, from the tortoise I had to become the hare. And I can tell you it was remarkably stressful, and I would stagger off to the pub on a Friday night in the village and see my friends and sort of go, oh, oh, oh. And they would say, yes, you can. And I go, oh, oh, oh. And they say, yes, you can. And strange enough, I did, because there is nothing like a deadline. And the fact...
That's not premature baby then, really, 8 months.
It is deeply premature, yes. But there's nothing like having spent your advance to make you actually write the second book.
As I said, that I have lots of figures and lots of pies. And I'm also a crime writer, and I've written the chick lit, so they're my 2 main genres. So any character who puts a finger in a pie probably usually gets it chopped off. But people ask me what do I do for a living, and I say I kill people. But I now also teach people to kill people. So I do have crime writers in my courses, but I do all sorts of different things. But to cut a short story long, which I'm very good at, I started, literally, I moved from Buckinghamshire to Northamptonshire. I didn't know anybody, so I thought I'll go to an evening class. So I brushed up on my languages, French and German, coincidentally, and then also on my IT skills on Word and Excel and so on. And it got to the end of the summer, and I thought, okay, what am I going to do next term? So I looked at the adult learning brochure, and there was creative writing. So I thought I used to enjoy English when I was young. This is 2005, and I thought I'll go along to that. And it was run by a lady called Sally Spedding, who's a Welsh crime writer. She's based in Northampton. And she ran a Monday evening workshop. And it was a critique mainly, and I've since then become an editor. I've run writing groups and so on. And she also set homework, and the first one was to write a short story which coincidentally was crime. But I used to love Roald Dahl's, I don't know how many of you remember the Tales of the Unexpected, with a twist at the end. So I love flash fiction and writing flash fiction with twists at the end, which are easier said than done. And so I've always had a penchant for dark. I blame Stephen King for me wearing glasses. So as a teenager, I used to go to school, do my homework, have dinner, do my homework, and then as the latest book came out, read it, and like yours, they're very thick tones. So I'd get hooked on them, and I'd be late at night under the duvet with a torch.
Hello, Jane.
Hello.
How surprising to see you here this afternoon.
I know, I've travelled a long way.
You have indeed.
Yeah.
Jane, you've been away for a while. Have you kept up your writing while you've been away?
Of course.
Jane, why did you start writing in the first place?
Why did I start writing in the first place? I decided, I developed rheumatoid arthritis when I was 2. And at the age of 5, I wanted to be either a detective or a writer. And being very pragmatic, I decided that being a detective with limited mobility was probably not going to work to all for you. So I decided to be a writer.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And I'm still working on it.
And I think you're doing very well with it. You, when you started writing, what kind of genre did you write to start with? Did you write loads of things?
The first thing I wrote was a children's novel when I was 11. I then went through the process of rewriting that chapter by chapter with the help of my headmaster at the time, and it was all then typed up properly with double line spacing, etc. and submitted to 8 publishers. It didn't get published, but I did get some very good feedback from the publishers, and that was the time that I realised that writing a novel was a long-winded, lengthy process. I then went on to write a couple of plays, which were performed at that middle school. Went on to secondary school, kept up my writing, kept seeing what was then my ex-headmaster, who was my mentor. Had another couple of plays that I directed at secondary school, and my writing sort of life really peaked at the age of about 14.
I've got hundreds of nieces and nephews and children that I know, and I used to read them stories, make them up as I went along, and as they moved away, different parts of the country and the world, they said, make a website and give us your latest stories. So I did that. A publisher saw the stories and sent and asked me for a manuscript. I'd never written a manuscript before. I had to look it up. I knew what a manuscript was, but not in how to do one. And anyway, they published it. Later on, I fell out with the publisher, and I'm doing it myself now because I thought I'm not going to become Roald Dahl. I just want to enjoy things, and I go around all the local schools and further afield, South Coast, etc., reading to children, and that's what I love doing most of all. That's really what I do it for. I go to schools, libraries, etc., reading for children. I read my stories on the radio. It's fun. That's what I'm doing since I retired. I'm having fun, and I'm writing more and more. I have written some serious stuff, but that's my book, the first book. What they are is they're little green fluffy creatures who are very silly. Lots of witches, well, fairies, dragons, but they're not. None of them are what they appear. Like, so the dragons are scary. One of them, for example, the willy groos, that's the little green things. They're a dragon traps them, and it's going to frazzle them up. But suddenly, it stops, and no flames come out. And what's happened is his batteries have run down, and it asks them if they mind hanging around while it charges them up, because it's really looking forward to frazzling them. But they thank it kindly and say, no, I think we'll go now.
Hello! Right, so I'm a writer, obviously. I have been writing, press record. She laughs at me when I don't press record, so. I've been writing, well, I've been making up stories since I was very, very little. The strange man standing at the back over there is my dad, and we used to make up bedtime stories. Rather than him reading stories to me from books, we'd make up stories. And as I've got older, I've realised just how tedious it must have been, because all of my stories were me at school doing the things that I did at school, and my dad had to, I would tell my dad what I'd done at school, and then he'd have to then tell me the bedtime story about me being at school and everything that I got up to at school. But I really, really enjoyed it. I liked having that freedom to be creative and just express myself however I could. And as I've grown up, I started writing a bit more seriously. When I was in my teenage years, I did use writing as a way to release my depression and anxiety. I've suffered with depression for, well, over 15 years, maybe a bit longer, I don't know. but it was a way of catharsis, it was a way of releasing emotions and letting things out. So that's where I kind of really got into writing poetry, and they were a little bit teen angst, and I'm a little bit embarrassed by some of them, but a lot of them are, I'm going to say, quite decent, and one of them is in here, so buy the book. And then I kind of fell out of love with literature completely. I know, I don't know if I should dare admit this actually on camera, but I stopped reading and I stopped writing while I think I was doing my GCSEs and A-levels. We were forced to read so many horrible things that I hated, and I had horrible, horrible English teachers that I hated, and thankfully Di wasn't one of my English teachers, but I hated them. They just forced us to read things that were dreadful, and we weren't allowed to have opinions, we weren't allowed to have freedom of thought, and I just thought, well, if this is what reading is all about, I don't want to do it anymore. Thankfully, I rekindled my love for literature, and I studied literature at university, and in my third year I thought, I'm going to do a module in creative writing. I used to write, I've written poetry, and oh my goodness, did it open my eyes to a world of literature that I didn't realise was there. I was so stuck in the idea of the muse. And if you're a writer or an artist, the muse flies, you know, kind of down your chimney and leaves presents under your tree. No, that's not. No, that's the wrong one, is it? Would fly in, and the muse would inspire you, and you'd write this fantastic piece of literature, and you didn't need to edit it because the muse had told you what to write, and you didn't need to proofread it because the muse had told you what to write.
Yes.
And I used to think I'd written these wonderfully amazing, you know, Shakespearean fantastic bits of writing, and then you'd read back over them a few years later and you think, oh my goodness, this is the worst thing that I could have ever possibly written in my life. So studying creative writing at university actually taught me how to edit, which is something now I love doing. I prefer editing to writing. I love, if anyone wants to give me anything, I'll happily red pen all over it. I absolutely love it.
I too like books. I also started I've always kind of written ever since I was little, kind of going to my grandma's house now. You go into any drawer and you can pull out a notebook full of little stories that's fallen down the back. But really, my writing took off also as a way of coping with depression and anxiety and mental health illness. I found it was a way that I could be honest with myself, and it was a way that I could really put everything down on paper and put it in a format that I could understand, because the thing that made my depression the worst and sort of aggravated it was the fact that I didn't understand what was going on, but by writing it down it helped me to kind of comprehend it a little bit better. And for a long time this was very personal. I didn't like to share it with people because I thought nobody wants to read my depressing drool. But then sort of my mum read a couple and she said they were really helpful and they helped her, and other people started picking up a poem here and there, and they started asking me if I could do more, because they found they could relate to it. They could find it helped them sort of identify where they were in their mental health journey, as it were. And so, kind of in response to that, I put together my book, which is a collection of poems.
Hannah,
and
you didn't press record.
You've got it anyway, it's fine. It's a collection of letters, poems and anecdotes which all show a journey that I went on. And as well as having depression, I also have something called misophonia, which is an incredible sensitivity to sound, which means that certain sounds cause extreme anxiety or anger, and I didn't know how to deal with this. Very often I can't eat with my family. I have to eat in a different room. I can't sit next to somebody if they've got a cold, because the sniffling makes me really anxious, and it just really made my life a living hell. And my dad said to me, "You're a writer, why don't you write?"
Ian, what started you doing local history writing?
I think that listening to people here, it's the fact that we're all involved in literature. My grandparents were very bookish, and I was one of those little nerds or geeks who used to ask questions of great-grandparents and grandparents. What was it like in your day? What was it like before the war? I was a child born after the war, and I was aware that something had happened before I was born. I didn't get paranoid. It wasn't anything to do with me. I knew it was something massive that happened before. Then it covered the whole of Europe, and things had changed from Lowestoft. And in fact, also we had loads of connections. I'm going to brag. Sorry about this. One of my ancestors was an alderman brain caps, so it's in the blood. I found it's in the blood. I mean, I can't get out of it. I've had offers to move back to Aberdeen, where the family originally came from, or to move my sister across to France, but something has kept me in this area.
Well, Lowestoft's got a lot to hasn't it? That's got a lot going for it, really.
Yeah.
People don't always see the good side, do they, of Lowestoft?
No, I was in the fishing industry for 19 years, and not even I saw the good side of it. Until the police used to raid Colm's trawlers, and certain ladies of the light, not of the dot.
Bye and goodbye.
And there's Rebecca filming.
Oh, where's Hannah gone? There she is. Yes, we're all saying goodbye. We've had a really nice afternoon. Lots of authory bits and pieces. Oh, I've got two cameras. Look at me. Look at me. We're all going to go home now and sleep.
I'll see you later.
Oh, Hannah keeps talking. I can't concentrate. Shut up. You shush. Look, my battery's nearly dead. Shush. Thank you. Shush. I did. We've had a very long day. Kinsey, go away. We've had a very long day. We're very tired. It's been very, very fun. And I hope you've enjoyed it too. And I will see you soon. Goodbye.